Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Arjuna Uvacha. Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhir Janardana Tat Kim Karmani Ghore Mam Niyojayasi Keshava.
Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work,
Text 2. व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयो अहमाप्नुयाम्.
my intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me.
Text 3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Loke asmin dvaviddha nishtha pura prokta maya naghah Jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service.
Text 4. Na karmanam narambha nashkarmyam purusho ashnute na cha sanyasanadeva siddhim samdiggachati.
Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection.
Text 4. Na hi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishthatya karma krit karyate hravashah karma sarvah prakriti jair guneh.
Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment.
Text 6. Karmendriyani sanyamya ya aste mansa smaran indriyarthan vimudatma mityacharah sa uchyate.
One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender.
Text 7. Yastvindriyani manasa niyam yarabhate arjuna karmendriyah karma yogman taktah saha vishishyate.
On the other hand, the sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment. He is by far superior.
Text 8. Nityam guru karma tvam karma jyayo hyakarmanah sharira yatra picha tena prasiddhyed karmanah.
Perform your prescribed duty, but doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work.
Text 9. Yagyatha karma no anyatra loko ayam karma bandhanah tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangah samachara.
Work done, as for Vishnu, has to be performed, otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage.
Text 10. Sahayagyah prajah srishtva puro vacha prajapatih अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वमेष वो अस्तिष्ठ कामधुकः.
In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation."
Text 11. देवान् भावयतानेन्ते देवा भावयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परं वाप्स्यथ.
The demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, and thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all.
Text 12. इष्टान् भोगान् हि वो देवा दास्यन्ते यज्ञभावितः तैर्दत्तान् प्रदायेभ्यो यो भुङ्गेस्तेन एव सः.
In charge of the necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you, but he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief.
Text 13. यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पच्यन्तात्मकारणात्.
The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment rarely eat only sin.
Text 14. अन्ना भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन् सम्भवः यज्ञा भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः.
All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties.
Text 15. कर्म ब्रह्मात् भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षर समुद्भवं तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्मा नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम्.
Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice.
Text 16. एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हयः अघायुरिन्द्रिया रामो मोघं पार्थ स जीवति.
My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow the human life, the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain.
Text 17. यत्त्वात्मरतिरेव हि सयादात्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्ट सत्सय कार्यं न विद्यते.
But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty.
Text 18. नैव तस्य कृतेनार्थो न कृतेनेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदर्थव्यपाश्रयः.
A self-realized man has a purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being.
Text 19. Tasmat saktah sattatam karyam karma samachara asakto hyacharan charan karma parmapnoti purushah.
Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a master of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme.
Text 20. कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धि मास्थिता जनकादयः लोकसंग्रह मेवापि संपश्यन् कर्तुमहरसि.
Kings such as attain perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work.
Text 21. यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठ तदेवेतरो जनः स यत्प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते.
Whatever action a great man performs, men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues.
Text 22. न मे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यं ऋषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नान्वाप्तमवाप्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि.
O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the service.
Thank you very much, Shreya Mataji, and I forgot the other name. Please forgive me.
Nitai Mata Mataji.
Nitai Mataji. Thank you so much for your wonderful recitation.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So we'll be reading, I believe, verse number 11 today. Yesterday, Madhupani Mataji gave a class on verse number 10. Is that correct?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. So we'll read the verse again, and then we'll start a quick session and discussion on the verse. So we're reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse number 11. Devan bhavyatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha. Devan bhavyatatena te deva bhavayantu vaha. Parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah param vapasyatha. Parasparam bhavyayantaha shreyah param avapasyatha. Devan demigods bhavyata, having pleased Anena by this sacrifice, te, those devaha demigods, bhavayantu, will please vaha, you, parasparam, mutually, bhavayantaha, pleasing one another, shreyaha, benediction, param, the supreme, avapasyatha, you will achieve. Translation: the demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you, and thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Demigods are empowered administrators of material affairs. The supply of air, light, water, and all other benedictions for maintaining the body and soul of every living entity is entrusted to the demigods, who are innumerable assistants in different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their pleasures and displeasures are dependent on the performance of yagnas by the human being. Some of the yagnas are meant to satisfy particular demigods, but even in so doing, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in all yagnas as the chief beneficiary. It is stated also in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna himself is the beneficiary of all kinds of yagnas. Bhogtaram yagya tapasam. Therefore, ultimate satisfaction of the Yagnapati is the chief proposer of all the yagnas. When these yagnas are perfectly performed naturally, the demigods in charge of the different departments of supply are pleased, and there is no scarcity in the supply of natural products. Performance of yagnas has many side benefits, ultimately leading to liberation from material bondage. By performance of yagnas, all activities become purified, as it is stated in the Vedas. Ahar suddhau satta suddhi satta suddha dhruva smriti. Smriti lambe sarva granthinam vipramoksha. By performance of yagna, one's eatables become sanctified, and by eating sanctified foodstuffs, one's very existence becomes purified. By the purification of existence, finer tissues in the memory become sanctified, and when memory is sanctified, one can think of the path of liberation. All these combined together lead to Krishna consciousness, the great necessity of present day society. Devan bhavyatatena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah param vapasyatha. Okay. Om Agyanam Timirindasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sa Padantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapad Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevaccha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So it's a very interesting verse, and we would often find many people who are believers of, or rather worshippers of demigods, quoting this verse from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Devya Devana Bhavayatat Yatatnena Devana Bhavyatatena. So one has to please the demigods. Te Deva Bhavayantu Vaha. When they are pleased by the sacrifices, Parasparam Bhavyantaha Shreya. So there's a mutual pleasing of each other. When living entities please Devtas by their sacrifices, then Devtas are pleased. When they are pleased, then they are able to give all the necessities required for the material prosperity. Shreya parama vapasyatha. You will achieve all the benedictions. Eh? Srila Prabhupada has used the word cooperation between man and demigods. Then the prosperity will reign for all. Now, we also understand from same Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna has mentioned about that how those who are worshippers of demigods, they are not to be understood the most intelligent. They are to be understood as alpa medhasham. In the 23rd text of chapter 7, Shri Krishna is saying, Antavata tu phalam tesham tadabhavati alpamedhasham alpamedhasham tadabhavati alpamedhasham devan devyajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. They're saying men of small intelligence are worshipping the demigods and their fruits. Why they are small intelligence? Because the fruits are limited and temporary. The fruits that are given by the demigods, they are limited and they are temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods. But my devotees ultimately reach my supreme abode. And this particular statement, which is appearing in text 23rd of chapter 7th, is also repeated in chapter 9th, in the verse number 25, which says, Yanti devan vrita devan pitryanti petravata bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhya pina mam. Very clearly, Krishna is explaining. Those who worship ghosts and spirits, they will take birth among such beings. Bhutani yanti bhuteja. And first line was Yanti Deva Vita Devan. Those who are worshipping demigods, they will reach to the planets of demigods. Pitrayanti Pittavata, those who are worshipping their Pitras, ancestors. Shraddha time is coming now. And we will see that there are various people who are worshipping the Pitras. And these Pitras, they live in Pitraloka. So there's just like demigods, they live in their own planets. Similarly, Pitras are living in Pitralokas. So those who worship their Pitras, they'll be taken to the Pitraloka. Bhutani anti bhutejya. Those who are worshipping ghosts, many people they say, no, there are no ghosts. But our Bhagavatam is explaining that those sinful living entities who have done so much sin that Yamaraj is not able to give them any kind of material body, any kind of 8.4 million species body cannot be given to this particular soul. So sinful, so sinful. Then they are awarded no bodies. And that no body, they are traveling from one place to another place, trying to quench their desires, but because they have no medium, no senses, no sense objects to fulfill their sense gratification. No senses, how will they gratify the senses? They simply suffer for many, many lifetimes. Ghosts. For these ghosts, there are planets. Bhutani yanti bhuteja. Those who worship these ghosts, and there are very many living entities who are attracted to these ghosts, and through the black magic and lot of sacrifices and austerities, they gain control over these ghosts and use them for their own selfish purposes. Such people, Krishna is indicating here, will themselves become ghosts. What is their destination? Ghost. Yanti madhyajino apimam. Now this line, last line, is same to the last line of 23rd verse of chapter 7. Mad bhakta yanti mamapi. Now here Krishna is saying yanti mad yajani yanti mad yajani apimam. Yanti madhyajino apimam. those who worship me, they will come to me. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining in these purports that if demigod worshippers can go to demigod planets, if the Pitras worshippers can go to the Pitras planet and ghost worshippers can go to ghost planets, then why cannot the devotee of the Lord, who are worshippers of the Lord, pure devotee of the Lord, can go to the Lord's planet? And Lord is claiming that here. So the part here, is it anything wrong? That is this a wrong statement that Krishna is saying? That they, with mutual consent, with mutual pleasing each other, there will be prosperity? That is also correct. So we understand it's like a ladder. Our Vedic literature is very beautifully given to us. However, it's very democratic in the sense that Vedic literature caters to all kinds of living entities, all kinds. So those who have huge desire to attain the material prosperity, demigod worships are there in the Vedas. And by doing these worships, one can easily achieve, or not easily, rather, one can achieve the goal of those sacrifices. And we see that in various places we understand and we see that how these goals are achieved in the past from the scriptural past times we can understand. But it is said that these achievements, because of the temporary nature, they do not stay with you for long enough. And therefore, they are insignificant. There's a beautiful verse in Bhagavatam, Canto 6th, chapter 16th, verse number 38. In this verse, it is mentioned, I'll just read the verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vishaytrasho narapashavo, Vishaytrasho narapashavo, ya upasate, vibhutin param tvam, tesham ashisha isha, tad anuvinashyanti yatharaja kulam. What it says, O Lord, O supreme unintelligent persons who thirst for sense enjoyment and who worship Vedas demigods are no better than animals in the human form of life. Because of their animalistic propensities, they fail to worship your lordship, and instead they worship the insignificant demigods, who are but small sparks of your glory. With the destruction of the entire universe, including the demigods, the benedictions received from the demigods also vanish, just like the nobility when a king is no longer in power. So, Srila Prabhupada is quoting here that whether full of all material desires, free from material desires, or desiring liberation, a person who is broader intelligent must be all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. And this is perfection of human life. Otherwise, one is like a Narapashu or Dvipad Pashu. So, there's another place where Srila Prabhupada is discussing this aspect. In a conversation with a marine biologist, Srila Prabhupada is saying, but this human form of life is better than demigods' life, because demigods, they're materially very opulent. And he quotes the example, he's saying just like Americans, when they came in India, they thought demigods, is it not? Americans were seen like demigods because of their beautiful features and opulences. So this person's name is Martin. He is a marine biologist. The Indians thought, and Srila Prabhupada goes, because they were better looking, good looking, intelligent, powerful. Similarly, just like this controller or director of this rain department is Indra, this thundering, it is under his direction, this thundering is going on. He throws the thunderbolts and cracks the mountains, then you get chunks. That is his business. As in government, there are different departments. Similarly, God has got different departments. And in charge of the department is a demigod. Creation is done by Brahma. Sustenance or maintenance himself, Lord Vishnu, and dissolution is by Lord Shiva. Then Martin asks, so how is the human life better than that? Srila Prabhupada goes, and Martin again says, how is human life better than the demigods? Srila Prabhupada then says, better than in this way, that just like here also in this planet, those who are in richer section, they particularly do not care to know what is Krishna consciousness. They are proud, puffed up for material opulence. And then they say, what is this Krishna consciousness? Let us enjoy a drink. That is their position. So it is a curse for them. Their richness is a curse for them, that they cannot adore such a nice movement. The middle class section, they are being attracted. Similarly, the demigods, they have got very, very high standard of life. Duration of life is very long. Beauty, opulences, facilities. So generally, they forget. Just like government servant does not mean a devotee, so they are devotee. Demigods, they are devotee, officially devotees. So this way, Srila Prabhupada is explaining the position of demigods and the position of living entities. Now, but we do understand that sacrifices are important. In what context is this spoken? This verse is spoken in the context of karma. When one living entity is doing certain karma, then it is explained in this verse that everything has to be done as a sacrifice. And as I was saying before, it's a ladder wherein different consciousness of people are attracted to the Vedic culture. For example, if somebody wants to eat animal, because there will be some who will eat animals, flesh-eating living beings. And for them, it is given that you sacrifice a goat to goddess Kali on Amavasya night, and that way you offer it and take prasad, understanding that this particular animal will have the right to kill you in the next life, and like that for multiple lifetimes you will be killed by the animals that you're killing. And someday this particular living entity, he's restricted that only he will eat the flesh if he only kills the animal. Secondly, he has to do it not every day, but on the Amavasya nights. And thirdly, he has to offer it to Mother Kali. And that way, in due course of time, his consciousness will be raised to a level where he can understand that what I am doing has repercussions of reactions, and therefore I'll have to suffer. And at some point in time, he will stop doing that. Not that one would go to slaughterhouses or rather go to a supermarket and buy anything and everything nicely packed up in supermarkets, which have the animals which are cruelly and brutally slaughtered, and then come cook and eat them. So Prabhupada has explained that anybody who is engaged in this entire chain, from the one who has killed to the one who has sold to the one who has cooked and the one who is eating, everybody is responsible for the equal karmic reaction. So in this way, we see that demigods are ultimately the controller of certain departments or departmental affairs of the universe. Now, another thing we must also understand that this human life, or this whole, not only just human life, any life on these planets, they are controlled by the demigods. For example, if we read in Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 3rd about creation, in that it is clearly explained that there are devatas who are even controlling the senses. And without that devatas, these senses will have no meaning. For example, it is mentioned that in the mouth we have tongue, and the controlling devata is Agni, which is the fire. Now, the sense objects and the activity of the sense object is expressing oneself in the speech and to speak. Now, if this devata withdraws his withdraws the ability of this particular functionality, then living entity will not be able to speak. Neither can they can they can they taste anything. For the taste, it is Varuna who is the controller of the tongue. Similarly, the nose is controlled by Ashwini Kumaras, without which one cannot smell the aroma of anything that we smell. And Surya is controlling the eyesight. Without Surya, one cannot look. Without light, one cannot see. Even though one has eyes, one cannot see without Surya. And there's a principle of touch through the skin, and that is controlled by the wind god with the name Anila. Now, if Anila is not there, then the tactical knowledge of touch, experiencing the softness and hardness and lightness, heaviness, warmth, coolness, nothing will happen. Similarly, ears, we hear from the ear, Shrotam, and the Devata who controls this hearing is Dik Devata. And then we have hairs on the skin. And these hairs are controlled, or tvacha, controlled by trees personified. Trees personified. And like that, there's a whole list. Similar, one important sense is mind, controlled by moon. All the mental activities are controlled by moon. And the seat of mind, according to Vedas, is heart, not the brain, as per the modern science. Mind's function is to determine and to desire and contemplate. So important sense object. It's all controlled by moon, moon devata. Rudra controls our ego or the heart. Heart is the seat of ahankar also. Similarly, navel is controlled by Matayu. So like this, we see that all the senses are practically controlled by the devatas, because that's how the creation has been done. But where these devatas are getting their energy from? Because devatas are not independent. Devatas are also subjected to the laws of karma. They have their duration of life. They are bound to give boons. Devatas are bound to give boons. If somebody has done certain sacrifices, it's not in the, it's like a rule, 2 + 2 = 4, or a square root of 4 is 2. Similarly, if somebody has done this, and the other rituals, according to Vedic injunctions, in those circumstances, with that intention, devatas will have to now fulfill the result, give that result, whether they like it or not. And we have seen how Lord Brahma has been pushed to give so many benedictions to so many of the demoniac souls. Even they don't want it, but because this person has done sacrifices, they are forced to give. So who is it that they are subjected to? There are rules created for them. There are rules created for them, and therefore they are not independent. And Krishna is saying that they are dependent upon me. All these demigods, they are working under the direction of Supreme Lord. So in this particular verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, again, Canto 3rd, chapter 10th, verse number 17. Vaikariko deva sargaha panchamoyanmayam manaha shashtastu tamasah sargo yassata abuddhikrit prabhoh The fifth creation is that of controlling deities by the incarnation of the mode of goodness, of which the mind is the sum total. This creation is sixth creation is the ignorant darkness of the living entity by which the master acts as a fool. In this purport, Srila Prabhupada explained, one of our sense organs, the eye, is controlled by light, light is distributed by sun, and the controlling deity is the sun god. Similarly, mind is controlled by the moon. Other senses, both for working and acquiring knowledge, are controlled by different demigods that we just discussed. So all these demigods are controlling us completely. And there are three modes of nature. They are controlling us. In this way, we can see that how much living entities condition and control throughout, from senses to the mind to anything that he wants to do and desire in this world. So Krishna says that all these demigods, they get their energy and powers and the ability to give benefits and benedictions from me alone. He says in 22nd shloka of 7th chapter, he says, Sataya Shraddhaya Yuktas Tasyaradhanam ihate labhate cha tatah kaman mayeva vihitam ihitan. He says, endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Maya eva vihitan. I am the one who alone arranges. But this is such a powerful verse. Chapter 7th, verse number 22. According to one's faith, according to one's Shraddha, one is going towards certain personalities in whatever modes of nature they are. In mode of ignorance, they want to offer liquor and meat, and then they partake that. In mode of passion, they want to offer certain things, certain part of their earnings to the demigods, and then they desire more fruits. They desire material opulences. In mode of goodness, they go to the demigods and they please the demigods, and they would not desire the material fruitive activities, but they would desire something higher, which could be the higher planets, or which could be going to the extent of liberation. So this way, we see that according to one's faith, one goes to certain demigods and thinks that this demigod is fulfilling my desire. But Krishna here is saying that in actuality, I am bestowing their benefits. So why don't you come straight to me instead of going to these demigods? So we see that in Krishna pastimes in Vrindavan, how Sri Krishna didn't want Nanda Maharaj to worship Indra. And when the preparations for the worship was going on, he asked Nanda Maharaj, why are we preparing so much? For what worship are we doing this preparations? And then Nanda Maharaj says that we are preparing to worship Indra. Indra is the one who is the demigod of rain waters. And because of his mercy, we get rains, and from rains we get grains and all the water that we drink, and our cows graze on the fields. And because of all of because of the water itself, that we are able to maintain ourselves. And therefore, as a gratitude, we want to give the sacrifice to Indra. So Krishna wanted to prove this particular verse that he has spoken in Bhagavad Gita, that he alone is bestowing all the benefits. And he wanted to teach the lesson to Indra, who was so puffed up because of his false identity and false ego. He also, Krishna wanted to give this lesson to Indra. For these two purposes, Krishna said to Nand Maharaj that what is the need of giving sacrifice to Indra? There is no need to worship the demigod Indra. And then he started to explain them in a very philosophical way, that everyone has to achieve the result of his own work. We can actually see that one becomes busy according to the natural tendency of his work. And according to that tendency, uh, they whether human beings or even demigods, they achieve their respective results. And one should be careful to discharge duties. And if they do discharge duties according to one ashram system, they will get their results. So, and by that, and this way, one should be careful by his natural instinct, and therefore one should not divert attention to worship the various demigods. Demigods will be simply satisfied by proper execution of the duties. So, what is the need of worshipping demigods? Like that, Krishna is prescribing this method. He's saying Brahmanas must study Vedas, Kshatriyas must engage in protecting the citizens, Vaishyas must earn money and by agriculture, trade, and he specifically mentions protection of cows. And Sudras, they must serve the higher classes. If they do all of their own work like this, then everything will be in order, and demigods doesn't need to be worshipped. And we know that how then Krishna stops this demigod worship. And what happened afterwards? Indra became very angry. He sends all these clouds to destroy Vrindavan. And Krishna finally picked up the Govardhan hill on his little finger, on the left hand, and protected all the cows and the various Brajvasis and the gopis. And we know about this pastime and how beautiful and wonderful it was for all the devotees to be under the umbrella of Govardhan and be able to see Krishna and behold Krishna's form for 7 days non-stop without blinking their eyes. And they were having utsav, they were having festivity inside. They were dancing and jubilation, and they were loving every single moment, and they were laughing, they were having laughters, and they were playing. And none of them was anxious at all. Whereas Indra, he was pushing himself with full power to destroy Vrindavan, destroy Govardhan. He couldn't even destroy a blade of grass of Vrindavan. And when all these Samvartaka, all these clouds who are actually sent only at the time of devastation to fill the planet with waters, when they reached back to Indra saying that we could not do much, we don't know what's happening. And when Indra came to himself to see on the scene and to destroy Vrindavan, soon he realized there is a power beyond him who is protecting Vrindavan. At that point of time, when he understood his Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, his entire pride was broken, and then he reached and approached Mother Surbi, the cow, that I'm so demoniac. I have done this offense to my Supreme Lord. Please, will you put my petition to Lord Krishna? And because it was Surbi who brought the prayers of Indra to Krishna, Krishna accepted these prayers, and then he forgave Indra and asked him not to be so puffed up and not to forget that he's working under his direction. Maya dakshena suprakriti sacharacharam. Prakriti sacharacharam. So all the Prakriti is working under his direction. All the personalities are also working under his direction, and they're being controlled by Krishna. And those conditions, they are able to give benedictions. Now, with these benedictions, sometimes, demigods give benedictions they don't know how to fulfill. And because it was Radhashtami, I just want to touch upon this very quick point of Srimati Radharani's appearance. It is said that Vindhyachal, the mountain, was very jealous of Himalaya because Himalaya has a daughter, Mother Parvati, and Mother Parvati has a son, has a husband, Lord Shiva. Therefore, Himalaya has the son-in-law as Lord Shiva, who was the most powerful, because of which Himalaya was the Rajendra, the emperor. And therefore, Vindhyachal, he wanted the same thing, Vindhya Parvat, he wanted to have a daughter who can get a husband who can defeat Mahadev. And therefore, Vindhya worshipped Lord Brahma with great sincerity. And when Lord Brahma appeared before him, Vindhya said, I want a daughter whose husband can defeat Mahadev, Lord Shiva. And before Lord Brahma could even think about what he's saying yes to, he said Tathastu. And when he said Tathastu, then he reflected upon this, that what boon have I given? Who can defeat Mahadev? So he was in trouble now. How can he now keep this benediction going? So he was thinking, I said, only one person can defeat Mahadev, and that is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. But who can marry Lord Krishna? Then he was thinking, oh, Srimati Radharani is the eternal, constant companion of Lord Krishna, Haladani Shakti of Lord Krishna, internal Shakti, Chitta Shakti, potency of Lord Krishna. She is the only one who can marry Krishna, and that way this boon can come true. So then in turn, Brahmaji was now performing severe austerities and worshipping Radharani. And when Radharani was pleased with his worships, then she appeared before him, and then Lord Brahma put forward his dilemma that this is what I have done, and please save me now. Somehow or the other, you become daughter of Mountain Vidya. I don't know how will you do it. Radharani very mercifully glanced at Brahma and said, okay, that's fine, I will do that. And then Radharani appeared although she appeared in the womb of Kirtida, who is the wife of Vrishabhanu, and also Chandravali also appeared in Vrishabhanu's brother's wife womb, but by the power of Yogamaya, they were both transferred to the womb of Vindhyachal's wife, and that way they both appeared as the daughter of Vindhyachal. And then the story goes on, the pastime goes on, that how these two girls were abducted by Putana on the order of Kansa, when Kansa got to know from the energy of Krishna, when seventh son was a daughter for Krishna, Kamsa, and when he was trying to slap her on the stone to kill her, she flew in the air, and because it was Durga Devi, and he was worshipper of Durga Devi, he took all the words of Durga Devi very seriously, that, oh, Kansa, oh you fool, the killer, the supreme personality of Godhead who will kill you is already born. And why are you giving so much of pain to this Vasudeva and Devki? And in due course of time, when you will be annihilated by this personality of Godhead. Kansa became very fearful. He orders Putana to go and destroy all these Shaktis and the baby girls and boys across Vrindavan and everywhere else. At that time, Putana was flying through Vindhyachal, and she found this wonderful ceremony happening for the daughter of Vindhya. And then she abducts these two, a child. At that time, the wife of Vindhyachal says to Brahmanas that chant powerful mantras so that this Putana becomes very weak and releases our daughters. And so it happened that as when Putana was passing through the sky, flying these daughters, she started to become very weak, and she dropped Chandravali in the kingdom of Bhishmak and Radharani in Vrindavan. And that's how Radharani was then found on the 1,000 petal lotus flower by Maharaj Vishpanu and taken back home. So these demigods, sometimes they don't know what exactly the repercussion of their boons would be. And there are many such pastimes we can discuss sometime again. The story of Bhasmasura was a boon given by Lord Shiva, and this demon went after Lord Shiva by putting his hand on the head of any living entity. He wanted to destroy that living entity. And when he got this boon, he went after Lord Shiva so that he can enjoy Parvati Devi. And Lord Shiva was running around all over the universe. And finally, he came to Lord Krishna, and Krishna then rescued Lord Shiva, appeared as a Brahmin boy, and fooled this demon and asked him to put his hand on his own head. And that by doing that, Krishna destroyed this particular demon. So like that, there are many various pastimes. It's already 45 past 8. So we understand from today's shloka and discussion that devotees, they are not interested so much in fulfilling their material desires. And that is the exact reason that they are not so interested in worshipping the demigods, because by worshipping the demigods, they will get only the temporary results will be given to them, not the permanent results. And they are therefore not interested in those kind of sacrifices. They are interested in only the permanent results. And hence, they would like to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And those pure devotees, they are far more superior than any conditions, either souls, either living entities of this planet or the living entities of higher planetary system, the demigods, etc. And the pure devotees of the Lord who are dwelling around in the creation with the compassion of delivering the living souls, they are far and beyond any positions of the demigods. And therefore, they just worship the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So that is the sum and substance of today's verse. Hare Krishna. If any comment or question, we can take it now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I just want to ask about Vaman Jayanti. Is tomorrow or like?
Vaman Jayanti. I won't know actually. I can look for you, Mataji, on the calendar.
Okay.
Vaman Jayanti.
Vaman.
Yes, Prabhuji, it is tomorrow.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So it's an
All-
Ekadasi, then also Vaman Jayanti.
Yes. So there must be fasting till afternoon for the Vaman Dev. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
If the demigods are not there's this they've done so many things and we're not meant to worship them. Why do we have them? Because they were quite destructive. Two of them, Brahma and what's the other one? Indra.
Mm-hmm.
And why didn't Krishna stop Indra from destroying Vrindavan, the mountain?
So this is very interesting because Lord Krishna always want to create this contrast. So in that contrast, the devotees, they come out very superior. Unless we have the contrast, unless we have black, we will not appreciate white. Unless we have darkness, we won't appreciate light. So in this material world, Srila Prabhupada explains that there are two kinds of people all the time: asuras, the demons, and the demigods. There are only two types: demons or devotees, you can say. And then all the demigods fall as a subcategory of devotees, really, because they are working in the direction of Krishna. So why Krishna did not want to stop Indra? If he did stop by his power, which he has, and he could have given the power, given the order to Indra, "Oh fool, what are you doing? Don't you understand? It's me here." But he was playing the pastimes, and he wanted the world to know that yes, these demigods are very, very powerful. They can annihilate the whole world. And he wouldn't let this happen to anybody, but because he was present, He knew that he can take control of the situation, and not even a blade of grass would be harmed by Indra's any amount of effort. Any amount of effort. Therefore, he let it happen. When I am the father of a child, and if my child is going in the beach, for example, if I know that this ocean can completely consume my child, but till certain extent and certain boundaries, and I am around the child, I will let the child go. So Krishna is playing his pastimes, and by doing so, he showed that his powers are much more superior, and his devotees are is far more superior to any demigods, and therefore, and how otherwise we would have seen Krishna doing these magnificent pastimes of lifting such a huge mountain on his little finger. Then Srila Prabhupada explains that, how do you think these planets are floating in the air? He's talking to scientists, and he says that because Krishna himself enters into each of these planets and make them float, and that's the only reason they are floating. Then he gives the example: Krishna can pick up the mountain on a little finger. So there's nothing impossible for God, and that's the reason he creates this kind of situation. Lord Brahma he's our parampara. From Lord Brahma, we're getting all the Vedic literature, and from Narad Muni, who is the son of Lord Brahma, who is disciple of Brahmaji, we are getting all the Vedic knowledge. And from Narad Muni, we understand Ved Vyas is direct disciple of Naradji, and like that. So they are all devotees of the Lord, but at certain part and certain times, they have to play that kind of role. For Hiranyakashipu, benediction was given by Lord Brahma. If that benediction was given only for the goodness or kindness of the mankind, why? If Lord Brahma would have not given that benediction, then this Hiranyakashipu would have not done those kind of austerities, those kind of brutalities to Prahlad Maharaj. And when Prahlad Maharaj would have not prayed to Lord to appear, and that way we would have been bereft of Lord Nrsimha Dev's appearance. But because it's all in controlled situation, Lord knows Prahlad Maharaj was never ever got hurt by any of the activities that was done by Hiranyakashipu. Not even one scratch came to him. So he was fully protected. But from outside, it appears that he was harmed. He was thrown in the pit of snakes. He was thrown in boiling oil. He was thrown on top of the mountain. But Krishna wanted to show a determination, the faith of a devotee into his Lord, and how Lord is continuously protecting. He was thrown in the fire. Constantly, he was thrown challenges of death, and yet he was not even harmed by a single blade. Even a scratch on his skin wasn't there. So this way we see how beautiful pastimes of lords are enacted by various, and demigods participate in that. So Lord Brahma have to give that benediction to Hiranyakashipu. Ravan had to get that benediction that his heads were there and nobody could destroy him. Unless he got that benediction, how Lord Ram would have been stood superior to anybody else and made feel that he is the Lord of the universe. So all these pastimes are there for us to understand the superior position of the Lord, and all these demigods are playing their part in fulfilling those kind of mission. So we have to understand that way. Otherwise, demigods are they are devotees of the Lord, and they are following the Vedic. Anybody who follow the Vedic system, complete rules and regulations, and live by them, they are all understood to be devotees of the Lord. And those who are not, they are called asuras in broad definition and terms. That's the reason.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my humble obeisances to you. Thank you for the wonderful class. My question is, what is Pitri Loka, and aren't the ancestors like getting bodies, like when we die we get bodies, and those who are pure devotees, they go back to Krishna. and then worshippers of demigod will go to their planet. So what are pitri lokas? I thought everybody gets body and they in the cycle of birth and death. So what are the
So,
planet ancestors?
okay, it's a good question. So although there are many classifications of who gets what, there's one of the classification is also Pitraloka. Just like ghost, there are planets where those who don't get the body, they go there. Just like demigods who live in the planets of demigods. There's a category of planets which are defined as Pitralokas, where ancestors live. Now they live in a body and they live very opulently, and they have the power of giving benedictions. They are not suffering in Pitraloka. So these planets exist in Srimad Bhagavatam. They're explained, their positions are explained, and to gain superior position than position of human being, one worships Pitras, and they can be taken to Pitraloka. So Pitraloka are supposedly better planetary systems than the planet Earth in terms of facilities, and therefore praying them makes is a motivation for the conditioned souls. So those who do not believe in, let's say, God directly, or those who do not worship the Supreme Lord or the demigods, but they do believe in their ancestors and they only worship their ancestors, those souls are transported to Pitralokas. That's how the system works, because there is that faith. Krishna explains it's as per the faith of the living entity. This whole situation and facilities to advance in spiritual life are created. So it is the faith which determines the destination, and as per those faiths, just like as per the desires, there are 8.4 million species. So we can understand there are so many desires of living entity. So basis desires, material energy has created the bodies for them to enjoy the senses. Similarly, basis faith, there are so many processes and interface between the living entity and the spiritual aspect of life. So Pitraloka is one of those things.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
All the offerings of Shraddha ceremony, etc., they all go to the Pitraloka.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Okay, it's time now. Maybe next sessions we'll discuss a story of Indra when he does not get the sacrifice through fire from living and human beings, because he was hiding in a water body. When he came out after 10,000 years, he was very, very hungry because he did not get his sacrifices for so many years through the fire, because fire could not enter into the water, and he was hiding in the water for some reason. So this is a beautiful pastime. We'll talk about it, but we have to have faith in the Vedas and understand these transcendental pastimes, and we can appreciate it much more. Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any more questions here. Is there anything on the comment section? Okay, there is. Oh, there is something in the chat. I'll just have a quick look through. Is there a list of demigods listed by ISKCON? Is there any Ganesha idol in any ISKCON temple? Okay. Demigods, there are 33 crore, 33 million. I guess if that is the translation of crore. 1 crore is equal to 10 million, I believe. So 330 million, something like that. Not, so we clearly can't count the demigods. There are innumerable demigods, but there are chief demigods, starting from Lord Shiva, Mother Durga, and then the demigods that I was just counting, who are controlling the various senses. They're demigods of insects. In Sanatan Goswami pastimes, we understand that when mosquitoes were troubling Sanatan Goswami in Vrindavan, Sanatan Goswami decided to leave that place. And there was Lord Shiva was residing there taking association of the pure devotee of Sanatana. When he understood that Sanatana Goswami is going to leave, he appeared before Sanatana Goswami in a disguise, and he said, "Why, Baba, why are you leaving from here?" He said, "These mosquitoes, I can't do my sadhana, I can't chant my japa." He said, "Okay." Then Lord Shiva called the demigods of the insects. And when demigod appeared before Lord Shiva, he ordered, because Lord Shiva is the ultimate head of all the demigods. He says that from tomorrow, you are not allowed to come to this place. Ask all your mosquitoes to go away from here. And then next day, when Sanatana Goswami was chanting, he found no disturbance. And then he appeared again before Baba. Before Sanatana Goswami, the Lord Shiva appeared and says, "Are you peaceful now? Are you not? Are you going to leave now?" He said, "No, I'll stay now. These mosquitoes have gone." So see, everything is controlled. And this is how we understand. So there's so many demigods. And is there any Ganesha idol and any ISKCON temple? ISKCON temple, we are worshipping Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have Lord Ram, Lakshman, Hanumanji, Sita Mata, Lord Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra Mata. And we understand that Lord Ganesha is deriving all his powers from the Supreme Lord Nrsimha Dev. And so Lord Ganesha is not directly present in this ISKCON temples, but you will find Lord Nrsimha Dev in this ISKCON temples. And one worships to Lord Nrsimha Dev for all the protection. That way, it is explained that how Lord Ganesha, because he's a demigod and he's son of Lord Shiva, his powers are getting, as we understood right now, from various scriptural evidences, that Krishna himself says that all the powers of demigods are coming from me. So from the form of Lord Nrsimha Dev, which is an expansion of Lord Krishna, incarnation of Lord Krishna, demigod Lord Ganesha is getting his powers from Lord Nrsimha Dev. And that's how we worship Nrsimha Dev. Okay. Is there any other question here? Okay, unless one is liberated, does everyone have to go to Pitraloka? How long does one have to stay in Pitraloka before moving on to the next life? So the point of liberation that we understand is not exactly what people in general understand. We understand that liberation means merging into the Brahman Jyoti of the Supreme Lord, and then you stay in the sleeplessness, sleepy state for God knows how many millions of years. And then once you get the desire again to act, then one has to take birth back to the planet, the material planets. Therefore, for liberation, there are 6 kinds of liberation. I will not go into details looking at the time, but the desired liberation for devotees is not to merge into Brahman Jyoti or to merge into Krishna's existence, but rather be situated in a servitor relationship with the Supreme Lord in either of the rasas, which is Santa Rasa, which is Sakhya Rasa or Dasya Rasa, or parental love, conjugal love, Vatsalya Ras or Madhurya Ras. So all these kind of relationships. So devotees are after developing relationships with the Lord, and therefore we develop that relationship with the Lord and enjoy that relationship with the Lord and not merge into the Brahman Jyoti, which is called liberation. Now, one does not go to Pitraloka as a liberated soul. Liberation means Brahman Jyoti. One goes to Pitraloka to exhaust their pious activities, and once pious activities are done, just like in demigod planets, then one has to return to the material planets, to the planet Earth or lower planetary systems, where now you would do your karma again. So it's a perpetual cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease wherever we are in the material world. Therefore, our endeavor is to go take shelter of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Lord, and go to his planet and be in his association as an eternal, soul, part and parcel of Lord. So this is our understanding of liberation. So with that, there is no more question in the chat box. I simply pay my obeisances to all the assembled devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha कृपा सिंधु भयेव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्णा
Krishna,
कृष्णा
Hare
कृष्ण
Krishna,
हरे
Hare
हरे
Hare
हरे राम
Hare Rama,
हरे हरे। शील
Thank you,
प्रभुपाद
Prabhuji.
की जय।
Hare
Prabhupada ki
Krishna.
jai.
Thank you.
Wonderful class, Prabhuji. Thank you
Thank you,
so much. Thank
Prabhuji. Thank
you.
you for
Hare
wonderful
Krishna,
class.
everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
everybody.
Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna, everybody. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.